You guys want to see a magic trick? Look, I made it worse. So Mario Wonder came out a few months back and boy was it a treat. This was easily some of the most fun I've had playing a 2D platformer in a while, and I couldn't be happier with the new direction 2D Mario is seemingly going in. But you see, the last game to release before Mario Wonder was none other than New Super Mario Bros. U, often considered to be one of the most bland and generic Mario games ever made. You know, like the complete opposite of Wonder. So I thought it would be fun to put these two games side by side to not necessarily see who's better, because we all know the answer to that, but rather to see what these two games did differently and why Wonder is usually considered the better game. As far as the normal gameplay goes, these two games are extremely similar. There are a few minor differences when it comes to some of the moves you can pull off, but other than that, it's clear that these games are built off of the same framework. This is not a complaint at all because both of these games feel very good to play. Movement feels so natural and every button press does exactly what you think it will do. This is most likely because they did a really good job making the movement in these games, but it could also be because I have played like 5 games that feel pretty much the same as these two. But you see, the differences between these two games are very apparent once you play them both. Mario Bros. U never really changes the way you play it, with Mario's moveset never really changing up all that much. Now, that isn't necessarily a bad thing, as that is how most Mario games are, but you see, Mario Wonder decided to shake things up a little bit with the addition of badges. So basically, badges in Mario Wonder are equipable items that the player can use to either give yourself a special move, give yourself an extra buff if you're having trouble with a level, or actually make the game harder. While some badges don't really change a whole lot about how you play, like the ones that just give you an extra power-up or something, some can drastically change what you are able to do in these levels. There's the Dolphin Kick badge, which makes water levels so much better, the Grappling Vine, which basically gives you a grappling hook, my personal favorite, the Air Spin, which basically just gives you another jump in the air, and so many more. And then we have the badges that make even more drastic changes, like making the player invisible or making the game into a really fast auto runner. I love how these badges find a surprisingly simple way to keep the game interesting for people. I found myself switching badges super often during my playthrough of this game, and even once I found one that was my favorite, I still had good reasons to change it from time to time. Some of these badges could also make for some awesome challenge runs, like beating the whole game while invisible and stuff like that. I think this really attests how special this game is, because while I was playing Mario Bros. U, I was never thinking that the game needed a system like this. While yes, the gameplay never changed all that much, I never really saw that as a problem because it was still really good. But then Mario Wonder comes along and makes this giant improvement, even though I didn't know this part of the game needed improving. The only thing in Mario Bros. U that ever really comes close to being as interesting as the badges are the baby Yoshis. These change up gameplay a decent amount and can be a fun little addition here and there, but honestly, I kind of forgot they were even in the game because they are extremely underused despite the fact that they are on the front of the box. But in all honesty, good gameplay doesn't matter if the levels suck, so how were the levels in these games? To start off with Mario Bros. U, these are very standard Mario levels. There is nothing inherently wrong with them, but they also don't feel like anything I haven't seen before. All of the level themes are just grass, desert, ice, and everything else that has been used time and time again. The one cool thing about the game is that instead of having a typical lava world with Bowser's castle and stuff, the final world is instead Peach's castle, which has been taken over by Bowser, who then added all the lava and stuff. It's a genuinely cool twist on the final world. But back to all the other worlds, yeah, they're just kinda lame. What really sucks is a lot of these worlds are named like they are going to do something more interesting, but then just never do. Like the desert world is called Layer Cake Desert, and you think that maybe this means the levels will be themed around a giant cake that also looks like a desert, but no, it's just a normal desert world that has a name that makes it sound more interesting than it is. But then we have Mario Wonder, which also actually follows the typical grass desert formula. But what I like about it is that there's always something different about it. I'm not going to lie and say that every world had this super interesting concept, but most of them at least look unique compared to other games. There are obviously some worlds that are just much more interesting than others, but all of them felt much more interesting to me than anything that was in Mario Bros. U. Like, if you thought that the final world of Mario U was cool, where Bowser took over Peach's castle, what about the final world in Mario Wonder, where Bowser is a castle? Level themes don't have to be completely original to be interesting. They can just be original takes on older ideas, which I think this game does perfectly. But the difference I find most interesting between these two games is how their levels are designed. Mario Bros. U is a quality platformer. There was never any doubt about that. But I think the problem with these levels is that's all they really are. I can't really sit here and complain about the level design because I really don't have any problems with it. It is your standard Mario affair, and even in its most generic form, it's still fun. The thing is though, I don't really remember any of these levels. Yeah, sure, I had fun with them, but they just all started to blend together after a while, and I genuinely don't think any of them really stand out. Occasionally, there will be some sort of level gimmick that actually spices things up a little bit, but these are so few and far between, and usually not interesting enough to make this game any better in my eyes. Mario Wonder, on the other hand, this game feels like every level is competing to be your favorite. Every single level has something interesting to show you, whether that be a group of singing piranha plants or blocks that appear and disappear to the rhythm of the music in the background. The game uses the new Wonder Flower as a way to introduce new and weird gimmicks into the levels. The whole premise of this item is that once you touch it, anything could happen. This lends itself really well to introducing new gimmicks into the levels and making them all stand out from each other. There are tons of levels that are still amazing even without the Wonder Flower, and then adding that on top of it gives us some of the greatest and most interesting Mario levels ever made. You can turn into a Goomba, the game can switch to a top-down perspective, you can get all stretchy, and just so much more. It's crazy how many ideas were jam-packed into just this one game. I think this shows the biggest difference between these two games. Mario U's levels feel like they were made because a new Mario game needed to be made. They aren't bad, and whoever was working on them did a good job, but they just don't have that feeling that the people working on this game wanted to make something special. All they were concerned with was making the game they were paid to make. Nothing more, nothing less. Mario Wonder, on the other hand, is genuinely something special. This is a game that people will remember for years to come, and you can tell by just watching some of these levels. This game was a joy to play, and I was genuinely excited each time a new level would start because I just didn't know what was going to happen. Another change to the levels that I liked was that now, instead of just needing to get to the flagpole to move on in the game, there is now a focus put on the new Wonder Seeds, which act very similar to the main collectibles in the 3D Mario games. You get the Wonder Seeds by getting to the level exits, which there are occasionally more than one in a level, as well as completing whatever challenge is given to you by the Wonder Flower. The act of collecting stars or moons or whatever in the 3D Mario games has always been super satisfying, so I think implementing a similar system to that in a 2D Mario game was a really cool idea. This also gives you more to do when going for 100% completion, which I did and had a really fun time doing. I do have one problem with Mario Wonder though. What in the world happened when they were making these boss fights? Overall, this wasn't a huge deal since the rest of the game was so good, but I was pretty disappointed when I found out that the bosses are just these two different fights remixed a few times, and the final boss. Since the game mixed things up with the levels so often, I thought that maybe the bosses would get even more interesting, but sadly all we really get is Bowser Jr. and this machine thing that takes like 2 seconds to beat. Neither of these are bad boss fights, but they do get kind of repetitive after a while. Mario Bros. U also didn't have the greatest bosses, but I honestly think a lot of them were more interesting than what was in Wonder. Like I said, this isn't a huge deal since the rest of the game is so good, but it's just something I hope they improve on for the next 2D Mario game. As far as power-ups go, I honestly think these games are pretty equal. Mario Bros. U mainly consists of returning power-ups, but it's a pretty solid selection with none of them feeling out of place or unneeded. The one new power-up in the game was the flying squirrel power-up, and I genuinely really enjoy this one. It offers a very useful glide while also giving you a mid-air boost you can use, which is really useful for some platforming sections or getting collectibles. Mario Wonder really only features one returning power-up with the Fire Flower. As far as the new additions go, we have the Bubble Flower, which is useful for defeating enemies and giving yourself extra platforms to jump off of, and the Drill, which allows you to dig underground and break certain objects easier. Both of these power-ups are nice and simple, while still giving enough benefits to warrant picking them up, which I really like. We also have the Elephant power-up, and I mean, I guess it's fine. It of course is visually the most interesting, but it really doesn't give a whole lot of interesting benefits. All it really does is make you bigger and give you an extra attack using the trunk. Most of the time, I would choose any of the other power-ups over this one. Like I said though, it is visually pretty interesting, and I think it fits the game itself very well. So after looking at both of these games, I think it's very clear as to why Mario Wonder is considered by most to be much better than Mario Bros. U. Mario Wonder has so many new and fun ideas, while U just tends to be basic, predictable Mario. U has its positives, and overall, I would call it a fun game, but Wonder still blows it out of the water with just how many new ideas that were crammed into it. Super Mario Bros. Wonder is genuinely one of the greatest 2D platformers ever made and will be remembered for years to come. Actually, I changed my mind. Mario Wonder has that stupid badge challenge level. I didn't really like that level. The boring one wins.